Good, after- Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fix. I am your usual host and presenter, Advocate Tulo Hoyani. Sorry for that little hiccup there at the beginning. I am bringing you breaking news this afternoon. Timothy Omotoso has been arrested in East London this morning. I understand that Timothy Omotoso has been arrested in the East London CBD this morning. Exactly on what charges he has been taken into custody, I am not aware. And I'll bring you the details later on in the day as, they become clearer. But the breaking news this hour is that Tim Omotoso has been arrested. Tim Omotoso, you'll recall, is that man who has just been acquitted by the Gqeberha High Court recently on a multiplicity of charges. Among those were the multiplicity of charges ran up to something like 32. Out of an initial 60-something charges, they were whittled down to 32. And that acquittal has prompted a lot of, anger from South Africans. And, the victims who testified strenuously to try and, get Omotoso convicted. But at the end of that trial, we saw how the judge said the prosecution had failed to make out a case beyond reasonable doubt. And a lot of people were saying, how could the prosecution have bungled such a high-profile case? Gender-based violence in South Africa is a very serious problem. And people were saying, what sort of message does this send out there, to gender-based violence victims? Are we taking gender-based violence seriously if after 8 years of this man being in custody, he gets acquitted? I'm surprised too. I'm surprised also by the fact that Tim Omotoso is still in South Africa. I would have expected that immediately after he was found not guilty, he would have made his way to Nigeria on the first flight to Nigeria. But the man is still here and has been arrested in East London. You'll recall how after that acquittal, the National Director of Public Prosecutions, Shamila Batoyi, also indicated that they were very unhappy about the acquittal of Tim Omotoso, and that she would get in touch with the Director of Public Prosecutions of the Eastern Cape, to get to the bottom of how the prosecution bungled this case, leading to the acquittal of Omotoso. You'll also recall how the Minister of Justice also weighed in on the issue and indicated that he would get in touch with the National Director of Public Prosecutions for an explanation. So everybody was sort of, passing the buck in a sense, but all in all, perhaps it was intended to get to the bottom of that, how that particular acquittal came into being. Because you see, those victims had to go through ordeals of not only testifying about what they had gone through, but they also had to face some very robust cross-examination. And it could not have been easy for them. And at the end of the day, when Omotoso was acquitted, it was probably the saddest day in their lives. And so here we have it, South Africa. Tim Omotoso has been rearrested. We don't know whether he has been arrested on other charges other than, gender-based violence and, molesting women and so on and so forth. Like I'm saying, the details are still not with us, and once we get those details, I will certainly make a follow-up and bring them to you. But for now, all we know is Tim Omotoso is under arrest. Perhaps he's under arrest for those other charges. Remember, out of the 60-something charges, he ended up only being charged for 30 something of them, because in the other charges, the witnesses or complainants were not willing to come forward. I can only speculate that if it has got anything to do with gender-based violence, he must have been arrested in relation to those other charges which, the prosecution had to hold in abeyance because the complainants were not willing to come forward. But that is my own take on it. That is mere speculation. I'm not stating it as a matter of fact. But what I am stating as a matter of fact is that Team Omotoso has been arrested. And this must come as welcome news to South Africans, and all those people of goodwill who have been saying, how does the prosecution bungle a case of this nature, when the evidence was so overwhelming? But like the judge indicated, if there could have been that evidence, but the prosecution simply bungled things up because, just to give you an example, when they heard about, when Omotoso testified for well over a week, his cross-examination only took about half a day. So the cross-examination of Tim Omotoso was really a shoddy job, It never, challenged the version that Omotoso had put up in court in his own defense. So that under those circumstances, the judge made it clear to everybody that, the fate of the prosecution was fatal to the whole case. And under the circumstances, there was nothing that she could do except to acquit Omotoso. But Omotoso is back in custody and is supposed to appear in court either in the Tanzania Magistrates Court or in the East London Magistrates Court. It is not clear at this stage. So there you have it, Omotoso back behind bars. Thank you very much for watching this video and have a wonderful day.